Hey, this is Rob Anspach with eHeroes, and today's special guest is Adam Raymer-Brown. And I met Adam probably, I don't know, 18 months ago at a speakeasy, and then met him again just a few months ago at another speakeasy, and I didn't recognize him. And the reason I didn't recognize him, as we'll learn in this podcast, and I'll let Adam explain. But that's just a side of what we're going to learn today. Adam is going to take us deep into the IT world and kind of give us problems and solutions on why IT is very important to growing an entrepreneurial business. Yeah, I stumble over my own words. So, Adam, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be among such great guests, except for Steve Sims.
Yeah, Steve was on twice, so I had to I felt sorry for him, but I had to put him on. Steve, if you're listening. No, it's Steve's events that are the catalyst to helping a lot of entrepreneurs. So if you haven't been to a speakeasy, I mention them a lot on my podcast. And so, go to Google, type in Steve Sims Speakeasy. You'll learn a lot about them. Actually, you probably won't learn anything about them because on Steve's website, it just says register for Speakeasy. It doesn't tell you anything about what you're going to find, at these events. But, trust me, sign up, pay the money, attend, and you'll meet, wonderful people like Adam and the rest of the people there, and you'll learn a lot.
But you will. You got to sign up early because they're selling out quick these days.
Yeah. And, Adam, you're in the IT field. And most people look at that and they say, you're like, what? Punch me. It's IT. But, information technology or whatever you want to call it. But, that kind of has a lot of categories under it. So, you go into buildings, you have wires, you have security, you have cameras, you have networks, you got the whole gamut. And I go into some of these, buildings when I visit clients, and their networks are horrible. The wiring is just, it looks like someone just took some spaghetti and threw it there. And it's just, you guys have no, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, because I think that they have no what is it? Anyway,
strategy.
Strategy, yeah, because it just looks like a mess, and I think they would have better pride in their work, and but they don't. And I'm sure you see it a lot. You get in and you have to fix other people's stuff, and it's just, you look at it and go, where do I even start?
Yeah. So I started in IT when I was 18 out of college. I was hired by a local tech company, and their training program consisted of sticking me in front of a computer and saying, fix it, or sticking me in front of a phone system and saying those wires need to go from here to there, and then he would leave and turn off his phone. So it was trial by fire, kind of fed to the wolves a little bit, but it taught me how to problem solve and how to figure things out. One of the most intensive situations, I had just put in a new piece of equipment for the first time, and I had to train 20 people the next day on how to use it. So, and boss just fed me to the wolves again and said, you go do it. So they would ask me how to do something. I said, well, let's figure it out together. And we got through it. It was a little bit of a blur, but I got through it. And it taught me how to think on my feet and how to learn core concepts, because the box will always change. The technology, that black box, that piece, it's always going to change. There's not one end-all be-all solution. As a business scales and grows, that solution might change. And we can get into that. But that's a little bit of my background. Worked for a company for 2 years. We were acquired, worked for them for 2 years. About that time, the great economy of 08, 09 hit. I was laid off, and those clients that I was primarily servicing had nowhere to go. So the company that laid me off was generous enough to say, you can service those clients, we'll refer you. And about 9 months later, I was full time on my own. That was 2010. I made the leap, and I've been doing it on my own ever since.
You know, for me, trial by fire never always worked because you know, I needed at least some guideline.
Hmm.
But you know, it's kind of how most entrepreneurs are born. You
Yeah,
know, um, there's always someone that says, "Hey, just do this," and you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to do it better, and
yeah,
I'm going to care better, and that's basically how you know your entrepreneurial spirit was formed. You
yeah,
know, and which is great, but you know, you do things a little differently now, and for me, it's like you know, I'm not a I'm not an instruction guy. You know, I get, one of these or, some tech and it's got, a big book of instructions. The
hmm,
instructions is the first thing that gets thrown out.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
to me, I
That's me in furniture.
yeah, I would rather just go, call you up and say, one, tell me how to turn this thing on and tell me what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to help me. And from that on, I don't really care. I don't want
Yeah,
to. I don't want to sit down for 3 hours and read an instruction book.
yeah. And that was a good lesson for me to learn. In the beginning, I wasn't very confident in charging market prices. That's still something that I'm retraining my brain and updating my mindset on. But in the beginning, when I started working for myself, I was grateful for any job that came along, and I'm learning to be more selective and niche down on my type of clients as I can do a better job for them. If I have more similar clients and select a group, it allows me to do higher quality work. And in the beginning, my thoughts were, well, they need someplace to go and they need help. So
Mhm.
that I came with that sort of an attitude. I didn't envision myself getting into IT initially. I wanted to get into real estate or business, and this job happened to come up. And after 4 years of working with these clients, I developed those relationships. And in my mind, they had no place to go. So I thought they need help. So I wouldn't have made that leap into being self-employed that quickly had I not been forced into it. I'm glad I was kind of forced into that situation though, and it's allowed me a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
And as I've grown and matured, I still seek to, okay, how can I do a better job? How can I learn? There's new elements of the business that I've taken on and new technologies. And each time I do, I seek to try and do a better job each time and learn something from each install.
Right. Now you mentioned the word you've grown, but you've grown entrepreneurially, but you've actually shrunk, physically.
Yeah,
And I think that is part of who you are. It's your discipline. It's that core dynamic that you instill not only in your trade, but in your mindset. And you've lost a lot of weight.
I have.
And I think when we spoke at Speakeasy, you said it was what, 75 pounds, or was it more than that?
I'm about 90 now. Yeah, I'm about
Wow.
90. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started that journey actually at Speakeasy Scottsdale. I happened to get connected with a coach not related to the Speakeasy group, but I had my first initial consult with him, and he does not coach you on a specific diet or exercise program. He leaves that up to you. He is specifically on mindset, so I think that's very valuable, and that appealed to me
Mhm.
because it's a gentleman I have. I've got about 40 more that I'm trying to lose, and I'll get there. It's the only thing up for negotiation is the date. So he in his 50s lost about 130 pounds in 10 months
Wow.
with nothing extreme, just mindsets and very basic principles. And they say the older you get, the harder it is to lose weight. So that really resonated with me, that I had been struggling to lose weight for a while, and someone 20 years further in their life journey than me was able to do that and keep the weight off, importantly. So that's been a significant journey for me. I believe how you do anything is how you do everything, and that was an area of my life that I had let slip and just let time and attrition and not management and not taking ownership over that area. I had let that kind of pile up, and it's easy to do. It's kind of the default, but took ownership of it, and it's been transformative.
Right. And a lot of the people, a lot of the attendees of Speakeasy were congratulating you because the last time they had saw you, you were a lot heavier, and they're like, and they thought maybe you had some health issues, but no, it was pure weight loss. It was pure, discipline in changing, what
Hmm.
you're eating and how you're eating, and and for me, just witnessing that, and we went out to lunch together. You know, you didn't order soda, you didn't order, any of this stuff that would be harmful for your body. You ordered water, you ordered, a good fulfillment meal,
Hmm.
you generally watch, what you're eating, and most people when they travel, they're going to slip up. They're just going to say, well, I'm not even going to bother looking because I'm in
Yeah.
a strange town, and they're just going to drink, whatever is convenient, and that's
Yeah.
not you.
No, no, it's been an identity shift and a mindset upgrade. So,
Mhm.
and that's what's really taken root, and the results happen to show in the weight loss. But I fundamentally believe that I had to upgrade my mindset and my identity, and
Mhm.
that the body follows. So it was nothing sophisticated, nothing fancy. I try and tweak things, and some of the best advice I got. Wasn't meant for weight loss, but was from Nick Peterson.
Mhm.
Think you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
I was listening to some of his material, and
I actually
he
met
said it's.
Nick at the Speakeasy in San Francisco.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I think I met him in Vegas. I think he was at that one too. Um, so some of the best advice I got from him that really resonated with me is it is easier to do better than your worst than to do better than your best. So I just can try and consistently do that over time.
Mm.
So in the beginning, we outlined a basic plan of what would be reasonable and healthy of weight loss, and came up with a general calorie restriction. So
Mhm.
no macros, nothing specific. Just try and hit this number more often than not.
Mhm.
And over time, as I would hit that number and be consistent with that habit, I would integrate the next one. So hitting in the beginning, hitting those calories might look like a bowl of noodles or pasta or whatever I wanted. But as I learned to hit that number, maybe I would switch out with cauliflower rice instead of noodles. Or
Mhm.
maybe I would switch out chicken instead of beef with the same dish. So small changes over time, and focusing on doing better than your worst instead
Mhm.
of it's really hard to improve on the best you've ever done and to
Right.
be consistent on the best you've ever done. But if you
Yeah.
can eliminate the valleys, then the floor will raise.
Right. And the problem with trying to compare yourself to the best that you've ever done is that, you know, I think you get to that point where you're like, there's no way I can achieve more than what I've already done.
Yeah. But it's
And so
easy to find fault. So
right.
it plays against that.
Yeah. But you take that same philosophy, that same, you know, uh, basic structure into your business, and you've achieved a lot more, in the last few years than most entrepreneurs, will in their lifetime. I mean, you've kind of changed the way you approach your customers, you changed the way, you sell the product and the service, and just the stories that you were telling me at in San Diego, it was fascinating because, a lot of IT people will just go in and sell.
Yeah.
And you do things a little differently. Can you kind of elaborate?
Yeah. So with IT, you kind of have buckets of IT guys. You've got the really good sales guys. They started out as the nerd. They learned how to sell stuff, and they got a bunch of swagger, and then they just sell, sell, sell.
Right.
Maybe you don't even need some of those services. They're good at sales. They're good at generating income. Then on the other side, you've got guys that have been in it a little too long, kind of the cave troll in the basement, really grumpy, maybe really good at their work, but don't bother talking to them, email only 3 days a week.
Right.
Um, eh, I try to not be either of those guys. So I try to approach IT from the perspective that it should be something you don't think about.
Right.
When it is working, it should be boring. I aspire for it to be boring, because if it's exciting, it means it's probably not working.
Hmm.
But I look at it from the perspective that it should be seamless. It should enable you. You should not have to think about your technology working. It should add to your life, not I've got to do these 3 steps to do the thing. It should be so that's what I go in with that mindset. And I go in from a entrepreneurial and business owner's perspective on what is the best value, not the cheapest, but what is the best value and what generates the best return on time. On maybe it's not the cheapest computer, you might spend a little more, but if you think of in terms of your hourly rate of your employees, if over a course of a year, maybe something that's twice as fast would save them 20, 30 hours over the course of a year, and compound that over 3 or 4 years, that's significant savings. So I try to keep those figures in mind and the figure of reliability. So those are the thought processes that go into what I do is generating value and uptime and reliability and making it as seamless for them as possible, because their business is not IT. Their business is their business.
Yeah. Technology moves so quickly. I mean, and things upgrade so quickly, and sometimes it's at least for me hard to justify buying something that I know will be outdated in a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you overcome those objectives?
Really, from the time savings, and you've got to look at the downtime calculation. So, a good book by I think Eli Goldratt was The Goal. It's about manufacturing, and that was a really eye-opening book for me. I read a couple years ago where it talks about if you have an assembly line with, I'll make up a number, 10 different pieces that go into that assembly line, the cost of someone idling and not getting out that part is not the cost of that individual piece. It's the cost of revenue of the company.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is one component, if you need a computer and a phone and internet and X number of other things to work in order for you to generate revenue in the company, if one of those components is down and you cannot generate revenue, then you have to look at what is the cost of revenue of the company. Mm-hmm. And you have to look at it from that perspective. And another perspective I bring is it is much easier to transition from a computer that is working to another computer versus letting it break down, and that puts you on the defense where you have to go get something at Best Buy, and you can't be picky at that point on what you get, and it's a lot harder on me to schedule because I have to spend an evening or a weekend out there fixing your mess.
Yeah, and with computers, I'm a Mac guy. I used to be a PC guy, but I switched to Macs. I don't know, about 8 years ago, and one of the things about computers is that I hate traveling with a laptop. Yeah, it seems like everybody has a laptop they're taking with, but I can do everything, that I need on my little Apple iPad, and I have an iPad Mini, so it's really small. And so, I go through airport security. I don't even have to take the thing out because it just stays in my bag. But everybody else is taking their computers out and doing. To me, that's you know, we're already connected with our phones. Why drag all of our computers with us? But but things are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and cameras are getting smaller, and everything's getting smaller, and customers are getting, I think, more demanding.
Yeah, it's whatever system works for you. If you're an Apple guy and you like your iPad, then I would try and just work with that. And okay, what do you need to do with what devices, and then figure out a game plan from there. I'm not going to try and force you into a particular box. If that's how you interface, my goal is to get you working and to keep you working.
Yeah.
And to think about that and not force you into a box that you don't want to be in. So if you're an Apple guy, if you're a Windows guy, I work on both and service both. So it's what keeps you happiest and what keeps you working within bounds. Now, if it's a box that I know that's in the closet somewhere, I take control over that part. But.
Yeah, I noticed that certain schools, like my kids when they went to college, the school determined that they have to, all had to use Chrome-based computers. Well, Chrome-based computers at the time were junk. I mean, pure junk. I couldn't stand them. So anybody who had a Mac couldn't use it. Anybody who had a PC couldn't use it. So they were forced to buy, spend more money to get stuff that they're probably only going to use a year or two.
Yeah.
But over the course of time, well, to some extent, now you can go online and they have web-based programs that can integrate with basically anything.
Yeah.
And to me, that solved a lot of problems. Probably created a bunch too, but um, you know, again, that's just another objection that someone's going to come to you and say, "Hey, how do you fix this for us?"
A lot of that comes down to a school board looking at price
Hmm.
alone. Maybe they're on a limited budget, but with requiring the same thing, I can understand a little bit of that from my perspective on everything being uniform. Uh,
Hmm.
it's hard enough if you cut the budget in half and you're limited on your resources and your manpower when everything is uniform.
Right.
That's where that's an advantage, because they know the box of service. If in this field, one check, I've spent hours looking for a checkbox at the end of the day that fixed everything.
Yeah.
And you go home thinking, did I really do anything today? I just looked at a screen and one checkbox fixed that whole thing. So, and that could be, I've had systems not be compatible with one letter off on the serial number.
Wow.
So, especially with security cameras, and that's a whole thing. But uniformity is really key at scale. To if you have X number of resource and human resource to manage an expanding set of computers, you have to have standards and uniformity. And a lot of times they're not great standards, but they have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So I get that, but I'm on your side on a lot of times it's crappy because they
Yeah.
don't know. It's decided by a school board and they don't know what they're buying and they don't know what's truly needed.
Right. Now, with the proliferation of cheaper Wi-Fi based cameras,
Mhm.
do you see that a lot of your clients are switching to them, or do they still want hardwired, networked cameras that I think are better?
So with to delve further into cameras, I liken it to I'm fighting two people with cameras. I'm fighting the Pied Piper because there's always a catch, and
Right.
I'm fighting Murphy's Law because if it can go wrong, it will. So
Hmm.
when I'm buying from the Pied Piper and installing and fighting Murphy. Um, so it's that was at the end of a frustrating day with cameras. You'd think they would be simple. I like just a cheap Wi-Fi, like a Ring system.
Hmm.
The large consumer wireless Wi-Fi cameras, they're really good on software. They're not great on their hardware selection. It's good enough. And where you can get better quality is better placement and lighting. Always add lighting where you can. That's never going to hurt. The traditional systems where you have the box in the closet and the hard drives and things like that, better hardware overall, better quality. You can get more granular on
Right.
what you're looking for. More expensive up front, but typically not a monthly fee. So it's a trade off on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Businesses, restaurants, big buildings, still probably better to do a regular system. Uh, with a home, I like the hardwired. If you can run a wire, I like to run a wire just because once I install it, you kind of own it. Even if you don't own it, you own it. They're going to call you,
Right.
and I want to eliminate as many potential problems as possible. So
Right.
I ask myself what could possibly go wrong with this and try to address that up front.
Yeah. So what's the most expensive system that you've installed? I mean, technology wise, I mean, you see TVs where, or TV shows where they do retina scans, and I've
Mhm.
never seen those. I mean, I'm sure that they're out
No,
there.
I
Um,
wish they had more of those. Those would be awesome. Um, I did a small city government. Most of my clients are under 20 employees,
mm,
so I'm from the mom and pop 2 to 3 people all the way up to about 20 people. That's kind of my sweet spot. I live outside of Louisville, Kentucky. I happen to be on site at a larger customer now, but I did a small city government. They did a few fancy things. That was about $15,000 to $20,000
mm,
for a system. They had and what they were looking for in that instance, they had purchased with tax dollars, tourism taxes, this $100,000 pavilion that was beautiful. And they
mm,
were going to have farmers markets, and it was great. They really wanted to catch any vandals
mm,
that happened to be vandalizing that. So we put in some fancier things. So we put in some 360 cameras so they could look all around. And then we put in, it was right by the main highway. So the police department said, hey, since you've got cameras there, can we get a license plate camera so we can look down the road, and if there's any crime or anything or anybody speeding, we can get a license plate. So that there was a few little eccentricities about that job that drove that price up. But a camera alone, the highest I heard was for an airport, it was $150,000 for a single camera. But again, if you look at the business case, I was shocked. I thought, why on earth would someone spend six figures just for one camera? That wasn't even install. That was just the camera. So in the Cincinnati airport, they have a runway. It's their primary runway. It's 13,000 feet long. This camera can see the entire length of the runway, 13,000 feet. If it's dark, if it's raining, if there's fog, it can see if there's a deer or an animal on the runway. So if you've got a $100 million plane with 200 people on board about to land, you want to make sure the runway's clear. And you want to be absolutely sure. So in that case, those numbers make all kinds of sense. But it's just depending on your use case and what you're protecting. And a lot of common things for restaurants is not necessarily security, it's slip and falls on people accusing the restaurant of having a spill and not cleaning it up. And some restaurants even have budgets set aside nowadays for just pay the slip and fall fee. So it depends on what you're protecting. And it's more than just the theft or to watch the parking lot. There's lots of different use cases for cameras, and that would determine the budget going into it.
Yeah, about 30 some years ago, I know I don't look that old, but we're going back to a long time ago, back in the late 80s, and company I'd worked for had these big touch screens, and nobody else had them back then. So as soon as you walked in, you had this magnetic, whatever it was inside your it was like a badge. So you had to show that. You had to put your thumbprint on the screen, and it was just, I thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. But nowadays, it's just so simple now, and it's just, the screens are much thinner, and
it's amazing. The display technology has gone so far down in price. It really is nice. Right. I'm not recommending projectors really anymore for people who ask me about, hey, I want a home theater. I just say, go get a big screen. It's cheaper. You don't have to worry about a bulb, and they've just gotten so cheap.
We have a projector screen in our upstairs room, and it's if you compare it to the TVs that are out there, this is like a 200 inch, and then we have a small projector on the wall, and we watch these movies like we're in a theater, and I think it costs us maybe $250.
Yes. Yeah. If you've got the room set up for it, those are still okay. But a lot of people they think they want a $500 projector, but what they're really wanting is probably closer to $5,000. So just for less maintenance and less fuss, I tell them just go get an 85-inch TV and call it a day. A little bit smaller, but you don't ever have to worry about it. So
and see, that's what I like about you. You you don't oversell a client on something that they don't need. You tell them plain out, hey, this is what's available. Save yourself some money. Do this. And when you're ready, come back and we'll get you a system that's customized to you. And to me, that makes you unique, because just a lot of people are out there going, hey, let me give you a quote. And you're looking at this quote and going, I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need this. What's this guy thinking about? This guy's an asshole. By the time you get down the list, you're like, forget it. I'm calling Adam.
Yeah. They don't, they just have their solution and they just copy and paste. So I see that quite a bit. And there are, and it's unfortunate. They're not doing a service to the customer. They're not truly listening and doing a service. So, and that's an area where I feel confident in, and with the speakeasies and meeting the network, where I have really had benefit from those, and it seems like it always goes back to Steve Sims. Where I've really got a benefit of those is I'm competent on the tech side, but on the business side, just like on the weight loss side, that needs to catch up. As I've gotten busier and busier, rates have gone up. I'm doing more and more, taking on more and more responsibility, feeling that overwhelm, that squeeze. So as a result of meeting Steve and going to those speakeasy events, I've been working with Pam prior, and
which I've interviewed before. You guys can go back to I don't even know what episode, but just go back and or type in the search bar and Pam Pryor, and
Yeah.
You'll find the interview I did with her. She's pretty dynamic.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Excellent to work with. So meeting contacts like that can help me on different areas of my business. And I'm redoing all of my social media. I'm in the process of that, and getting that secured so I can offer a better product of myself,
Yeah.
and shore that up. So that's really been great about the speakeasies is you meet all these people that you can bring a solution, and they're the who.
Yeah.
So it's a good
You know,
realm of finding a who.
one of the things that you learned early on, which most entrepreneurs take a long time to figure out, sometimes it's even too late before they, their business is ready to fail before they realize that they need to up the prices. And you've done that, and you looked at the hard numbers and you said, yeah, I got to increase my prices if I'm going to survive. And you're getting to the point where your prices still need to go up, but you're making a comfortable living. You're able to travel to events like Speakeasy to learn from others. And that's what entrepreneurship is all about. I mean, it's not about just creating a job and hoping that you can pay bills. It's
No.
about, more than that.
Yeah. And it's been definitely a learning process. I've been self-employed now for 11 years, and figuring out the taxes, figuring out the accounting, figuring out that that's not me, and then going, Pam,
Yeah,
please
who
help.
wants to pay taxes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But figuring out, okay, this is not my wheelhouse,
Right.
and just applying my own methodology. But when I do that on myself, I can be more receptive to a customer and saying, okay, technology is not their thing. I'll have customers ask me where I learned this. And I said, hey, everybody's got their area. You don't want me working on your car.
Mhm.
So I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a sports guy. But technology, I know something about, and I can help you with.
And I remember that we had this talk. We went out to lunch. We had this talk, and you were even thinking about offering, maintenance support plans, after the install, and offering, consulting and all this other stuff that a lot of IT companies don't do.
Yeah. The market is moving in that direction where it's managed services and flat rate pricing. A lot of service industries are moving in that direction. I have to fully understand that, and I'm implementing the managed service model now with one of my bigger clients, and we'll see if it works out. It's looking good, but we'll see if it works out. I have to understand and know that it's going to be a good value, that all parties will come out ahead before I feel comfortable with that. And well, as a result of working with Pam, I figured out why there's a profit margin. It's the simple answer is you charge a profit to make money, but do you know when you want to be profitable? And that's a whole separate question. And that informs billing cycles and a whole bunch of other things. So just being in tune to other people in the room and the answer they can provide, and knowing what you do and what you don't do.
Right.
And being willing to hire that out, and being humble enough to admit that this is not your area.
Yeah. So what's your service area like? I mean, are you localized, or, if someone said, hey, Adam, I got a boatload of money, can you travel?
If there's a boatload involved, not a dinghy. If there's a boatload, then I'll travel. Yeah. Remote support, I do have some contracts in place that we can offer some remote support to anybody with an internet connection. But my primary wheelhouse for right now has been taking someone that business that's been around for 20, 30 years, and I call it the mess under the desk. You referred to it earlier, that spaghetti.
Yeah.
And taking them, getting them a game plan, getting them to where I primarily work with either the owner or the office manager, and you can just see the stress on their face where they don't even want to touch that thing behind the desk or in that corner of that room. So we need to get them past that point and get them organized. And typically it's just a sign. I kind of related it to my weight that I had packed on over the years of just not a game plan. It was nobody in particular's job. Maybe staff has changed around. The cousin of the guy that used to take care of it's been long gone.
Right.
You see that all the time, and just it was nobody's job, and it kind of just gathered dust. So that's a lot of what I'm doing right now is just getting the network kind of turned around and get a game plan there to where they understand, they have clarity around what is going on with their computers and their network. They don't have to know how it works, but they have to know where to go and where everything is so they can point to it. And I put everything on one switch. So I tell them, if this goes down, just flip this switch off and back on. And if that does not work, call me. And they love that. So that I can't make it any simpler. If I could figure out a way, I would. Because again, that's not their job. My job, I feel like where I can add value is adding clarity and meeting them where they're at, and not expecting them to meet me at my knowledge level.
Right. So how do people get a hold of you?
That's changing. It'll be all the webs and things. I've got Henry is redoing a bunch of stuff for me. So
and
phone, email.
Folks, he's mentioning Henry Sims, which is the son of Steve, but Henry also interviewed him a couple times, and so go back and listen to those too.
Yeah. So email, website, Twitter. Twitter's mostly my Elon Musk stalking account, but I'm on there. I'm on Facebook, about everywhere.
I think we all need to have somebody that we stalk, right?
Yeah. Learned a lot from him. I drive a Tesla, and it's a fun car. So.
And did you get it after we went to the Tesla tour and from Speakeasy?
I had it before.
Did you?
Yeah, I had it before. That was a big life goal for me. So I first drove one in 2015, and I called up the dealership and I said, "There's no way I can afford one of these cars, but can I see one?" And they were desperate to sell cars. So they said, "Yeah, you want to sit in one and drive one?" I said, "Absolutely, I do." So I drove 100 miles to go up and sit in and drive a Tesla. And the sales guy was brilliant. He said, "Now, when this light turns green, make sure there's nobody ahead of you, and put the accelerator all the way to the floor." And darn if they didn't sell me a Tesla in 4 seconds. So, so it took me about 800, 900 days. But I got into a used Tesla in 2017. That was a big life goal. I drove up in my Dodge Caravan that I had given up most of my 20s to, and drove off in a Tesla.
Wow, it's amazing. You know, I like them, but you know, I'm in the country in Pennsylvania, and so for me to you know, it would be like 50 miles just to get to a recharge station.
Yeah, that can be an issue, but they're working on that, and it's a tech car, so it's on brand for me. That's the justification, and I bought it when I turned 30, so I thought it's a little early for a midlife crisis, but I can maybe pull that off and blame it on that.
So what's the website URL? I'll put it down, and people can visit you.
raytechservices.net.
Okay. So even if you upgrade and change, it's you know, at least they have a place that they can go to find you.
Yep, absolutely. And that's all going to be redone. It's an area that I've had on my list for years and years, and I called Henry the other day and I said, "You know what? I'm no good on my own on this. I just need someone to handle this." So I took my own advice with technology, and I found a who, and I've been systematically doing that as I get more success. The more I do that, the better I do. So that would be some advice: is find a who and just let them handle it and leave it up to them. Find an expert that knows what they're doing. Leave it up to them. Don't question their judgment. Just let them do their job. They're going to love you more for it. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm doing.
That's what makes Adam an e-hero. So guys, thank you for your listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Adios.
Thank you.